Hey everybody, good day, good evening, good morning. What's up, Mythical? I'm struggling with those intros recently.
You gotta stop going for the time of day thing. It's
Yeah,
different
it's
here, it's
awful.
different there. It's lovely today because we are doing more Ultimate Decathlon. I'm excited. We got some good games in the pool. I mean, how can you go wrong when you're picking from these 10 chosen for the Decathlon? But we got some Kirby, we got some Trackmania, we got some VVVVVV, but we have Lawnmower. It's my favorite.
Yeah, and we got a little bit less of lawnmower on Saturday due to technical difficulties, so it's going to be a good time to catch up with the game and have a good full run. Stream by Copy Quick, Ghost Death, Small Games, and Allknocker. Last week was crazy. We got our six first qualified on in the UD, being Devil Tifa, Taker. Um, I started the list and I didn't prepare. I'm sorry.
I got you. We
Jant,
got Malaman, Jean, Lilia, and KTH.
nice. And so we're streaming four other runners, but still some of the best. And but it's a totally relaxed and fun event. Nothing to gain, nothing to lose, except for gold stars, silver stars, and bronze stars still appearing on the player cards. And we're going to play some good decent game for fun, just to get back in the mood of playing things relaxed. A lot of players have been super tense due to the qualification and playing all 10 games in a row. So having only 4 today is going to be nice. Ghost Death got barely not qualified. Sadly, the same story as UD6 almost.
He has, you can see he's seventh best in terms of race times, and that was kind of the story that happened on our qualifying tournament featuring just outside the top six. You can just see the bars on all of these games are just off the charts on most of these games. Not quite there on 3 of them. 2 of them being probably the hardest to get. That the 200 points, let alone your arrow or double arrow in VVVVV and Kirby, which we are playing today. So, according to these bars, it's Ghost Death's 2 weakest games. But given the difficulty of getting 200 points in those games, I don't know if that's necessarily true. It's a heck of a lot easier to get. I don't know. Maybe I thought Rack was pretty easy, but I might be an anomaly in terms of getting 200 points in that game. But I think if we take a look at everyone's Kirby's and everyone's VVVs, like we can see Molgames here has a better Kirby, but a little bit worse on those Vs. Has a very respectable lawnmower, and Trackmania is like 10 seconds, 11 seconds, I guess, off of the 12-minute mark. So is not quite on that cutoff that is something I think probably people want to aim for, but it's just so hard to justify putting in so much time into Trackmania for those 11 seconds.
The worst thing about Trackmania is once you put enough time to beat sub 12 and to be there consistently, it seems so easy. Remember on Saturday when Devil Tifa got hang on level 1, on level 5 he flew off the road and got back in by going out of bound and barely climbing up the railing, and still doing all those weird mistakes, got sub 12. Allknocker is a good runner, 6:17 on race times, but did not get on VVVVV, Kirby, Lawnmower, or Trackmania. Good race times. It feels like they can do better on all 4 games we're playing tonight. Lawnmower is the wild card. You can be sub 10 and be able to go for sub 6. No one knows.
Yeah, it is. It is a really remarkable game. In that, I can't think of any other speedrun that varies so wildly. That has nothing to do with randomness, right? It's just that hard and that punishing all the time. So it makes for a fantastic watch every time every time we have it on. And anytime I want to see anyone play this game, I should follow this game on Twitch. I don't know who would possibly, outside of this event, be streaming this game, but if they are, I want to know and I want to watch.
Yeah, it is a fantastic game. We totally should have a full-blown speed gaming tournament on Lawnmower after UD7 is done, giving the edge, obviously, of UD7 runners. But I'm sure a lot of speedrunners would be interested in just picking the game up and trying to play it, because you're as good at the game after 2 hours of or 50 hours of playing it. Feels like the game is so hard and tense and fast-paced that any tiny mistake is going to kill you and cost you a lot of time. Still a fantastic speedrun and a very, very good watch. If you've never seen the game raced, you're in for a treat.
Man, it's been a while since I've been a proper tourney admin, putting together Google Forms and docs and giving people roles and pinging them. But if it was necessary to make a Lawnmower tournament happen, I think I'd be willing to try. I think I'd be willing to get back in there, and I just hope I can get people to show up for it. It could be amazing, or it could, I don't know, it could scare people away, because it is so very difficult to steer this Lawnmower around. You can see Molgames is still warming up here. I cannot blame them. This is definitely a game that you want to be at least a little bit prepared for. I feel like you have a couple easy levels early on to kind of settle into the run, so it's one that you can afford to go in a little bit cold. But this game will get you, man. It is so punishing. We've seen incredibly good players lose minutes, and we'll see how it goes. The race is just about to start.
All right, players pressing start, and it starts such as a simplistic game. You have to mow all the lawns, steering up, left, right, and down your lawnmower, and nothing is here to kill you. Your fuel is depleting, but a little bit fast, but you have a lot of fuel cans that spawn, and it starts so nice and cozy. No one's missing even a turn so far. Level 2 presents the issue with the flowers, so obviously you don't want to cut them, and the game is going to punish you by costing you a lot of fuel when you cut down a flower. Killing Molgame is there, and sadly, that's when you start realizing that the lawnmower goes so fast. It's very, very difficult to take those tiny corners, and Onlooker is slowing down to mow the lawn in between flowers.
Yeah, if you're watching, the fastest players at this game, you might be forgiven for not realizing you have control over the speed of the lawnmower by holding down, I think it's A. I can't remember anymore if it's A or B, but it's a button. It's the only button you have, is to make this thing go faster. But it goes really fast, and you can't, if you wanted to get a medium speed, you would need to feather it in kind of a weird way. There's no cruise control on this lawnmower, so you've got very slow and very fast, and anywhere in between is very difficult to manage. And honestly, even at the slow speeds, you'll see players still make mistakes. It's just that finicky to control this lawnmower. Once it gets going towards a direction, it can do a 180 and come back, but it can't turn 90 degrees until it's reached the next tile. So you can get kind of very easily locked into going onto the wrong tile. And as we've seen with flowers, that can be enough to kill you if there's a couple in a row, or you're being really aggressive, or if there's a rock. We've got some rocks that we're on level 3 that weren't too much of a problem. There's 3 in a row here on lawn 5, and so if you make a wrong turn and go across multiple rocks, you're instantly done.
Yeah, 3 rocks is instant death. That's why players are all going to slow down. Lone 1, 2, 3, and 4 are not so bad. Starting here, we have those instant death issues.
Is he going to be able to recover it looking for the... No, needed the lucky spawn.
Sadly, yeah, when you lose so much fuel at once, you need the spawn to be right next to you. And that's very unlikely, because the fuel can is going to spawn anywhere on mown grass. So you need to be super lucky once you're down to have more than half of the grass remaining. Ghost Death making very good progress entering level 6, the hardest level. Everybody is going to slow down and take their time because losing time, dying is way better than is way worse than slowing down in the game. Onlooker is slowing down to mow all the grass, and sadly it doesn't pay off too well for them. They forgot a tiny bit of grass and...
Oh god, get over there!
Oh my god! Alright, taking the easy to get fuel can on the edge of the screen and getting to level 6.
Yeah, the edges of the screen are relatively safe. Your lawnmower will stop, will not take damage or anything on the outsides of the screen, so that is the easiest grass to get to. If you need to cross from one side of the screen to the other, it's most easily done by just getting up into the wall and then heading over. Ghost Death one-shotting Lawn 6 at an interesting strat where he intentionally goes over a rock at the start. Because of the first 3x3 grid is where your first gas can is going to spawn. So his route took him right inside that square as soon as it was due to spawn. So he was in no real danger of dying. Assuming he didn't hit a second rock, but it was pretty interesting to have an opening like that. It was really fun watching the way that lined up. Kirby has been going very slowly but steadily, has reached Lawn 6. Mulgames is here as well, and now Onlooker, who just went over a rock, and they have grass mowed all over the place. They did not get the lucky spawn.
Oh
they
my god, one
tile
square away.
Oh.
That's hard. And Mulgames dies with a very over 80% of the grass mown, sadly. So has to stop
Ghost Death
all
in
over
trouble.
Again. Oh, and Ghost Death die at 94% restarts, and Ghost Death was well ahead of everyone else here, but sadly Dead Death set them back quite a lot. Onlooker taking their time to grab that fuel can, and meanwhile Kirby with a steady horizontal lines here finally clears level 6. Meanwhile Onlooker dies again, and Ghost Death is still on lone 7. One very long and difficult lone, to be honest. There are only flowers, but so much of them. You are always a wrong turn away of dying.
Yep, they are because if you take any one of these turns, Ghost Death had to go really fast there. Going over 2 flowers, how's he gonna add it? Okay, he does get a nice spawn right on screen. He knows exactly where it is, and he's able to control himself. But the fact that these flowers are all in a row, it means that if you turn up too early or too late, you're probably gonna go over a whole row of them, and before you can even realize that you've done this to yourself, chances are it's too late and you've already gone too far, because the lawnmower just goes that fast and it's so easy to make those mistakes. Your brain just can't keep up with visually what is happening on screen. So you're almost guaranteed to go over multiple flowers in a row. It makes Lawn 7 very difficult. Ghost Death barely holding on, unlike Kirby.
Going too aggressive and wanting to cut the flower to take a shortcut to grab the fuel can, but sadly did not have enough to both cut the flowers and survive to the trip, and sadly are heavily punished for that. So has to start all over again, meaning that Mulgames just passed them. Meanwhile, Onlooker is still on lone 6. Ghost Death is on lone 8. Probably the lone that's the hardest when you start, and becomes one of the easiest once you have a set pattern to mow through that level. The difficulty being that it's divided in 3 sections, and if you are not careful with the way you mow the grass, the fuel can is always going to spawn so far away from you. It's going to be very difficult to make progress, but no issues for Ghost Death. Meanwhile, Mulgames is on lone 8 as well, and goes for an interesting strategy here of mowing all the left side and then going to travel through all the grass, coming back to grab the fuel can and keep on moving.
Yeah, there's merit to mowing the middle areas first, so that the fuel is always spawning in a more centralized location. But obviously, if you mow all the grass in the middle first, you're probably not going to be able to do all of one side and then all of the other. Probably the fuel can is going to force you to leave. And so while you're sort of crossing the middle area, you're not doing any mowing. So it's inefficient, but it is more safe. So, oh my goodness, Kirby had to really hustle to get to that fuel, and could not get it in time. That is a danger you can very easily fall, a trap you can very easily fall into on Lawn 8 here, because the rocks force you to make sort of an S turn to get from one side to the other, and it takes time to do that. It takes time to go up. It takes time to come back down, and you don't have as much time as you think you do to cross the screen and get to a fuel can.
Goes Des barely making it to the corner here to take the fuel can. Had an unfortunate spawn, but survived 63% through level 10. And we are already 8 minutes into the run. The time ticks so fast. The world record is sub 6 minutes, almost at the 5 minutes mark. And on Saturday, Taker got 5:59 on his run. We did not get to see the finish, but anything deathless is crazy in the game.
Yeah, I think 5:59 is probably the fastest time we've seen in a tournament so far. Very, very crazy. Oh, Ghost Death got so greedy. Is he going to be able to get there? Okay. Yeah, that was very. It was very efficient to not leave that grass patch there, but really had to hustle and was able to clutch it out. Well, we'll see. He's still got 4 more tiles of grass here.
Yeah, we go.
And there
nice.
it is.
Sub 9. Very difficult game. KTH completed in 7:25 and Dishboard in 7:42. And goes this in 8:55. Meanwhile, Molgames, Allnooker, and Quick are still a little bit away from finishing here.
Yeah, Molgames just fueled out. Not too. Oh, and again now
Double
with the
rock.
Yeah, the edges of Lawn 10 are incredibly nerve-wracking. They are at the end of the run, so if you're on a good one, it's especially tense, which is, impossible because this run is so tense already. You feel like it shouldn't be possible to be even more tense. But this lawn is incredibly difficult with the rock patterns that are just like kind of intricate. You need to get in and around all of these rocks. Molgames mowing a lot of flowers there, but was able to recover thanks in part to some heads-up play and a favorable spawn. But getting in and around these rocks on the edges, while keeping an eye on where's the fuel spawn, when is it, and then do I have enough time to mow this little patch of grass, that little patch of grass, before I need to hustle and get over to the other side where the fuel might be. It's a push and pull on this level in particular that is incredibly difficult because you need to focus so hard on maneuvering the lawnmower through the rocks on each side.
Yeah, those one tile spaces between those rocks. Oh no! There's 98%, 4 squares remaining. This is where I usually don't. I usually don't want to see runners full fading or stopping, just taking a deep breath and maybe considering what they're doing. But on Lawnmower, it's not the player's fault when such a mistake arrives. It's just because the game is so tense, so fast-paced, it's so easy to take a wrong turn. You have just a few frames to adjust and turn correctly. If you are too stressed out with the situation, you want to go faster, you cannot. You have to wait for the correct time, and it's very, very difficult, and it's some deaths are really, really hard to deal with, to be honest. And a wrong turn here for Molgames, did not see the fuel can in time, I think, and could not react properly to refuel there.
Yep. Oh, this rock, he is going to be able to recover from this one, thankfully. Kirby also struggling with Lawn 10 and Allnooker. Almost done with Lawn 9 here. We'll see. I'm not sure how much grass is left on the other side yet. I think there is a little bit, perhaps. No, just getting the fuel. And this should finish up Lawn 9. So Allnooker joins Kirby and Molgames in Lawn 10. If you die a couple times in Lawnmower, I feel like you kind of expect that to happen. It's not a big deal. But when you die multiple times on the same lawn, and when it's Lawn 10 in particular, and when you were so close to finishing, it can be very hard to not tilt. It is a very, very easy game to lose your composure in. So let's hope that all of our brave lawn care veterans here are able to do exactly that.
Alright, Molgames has mown the edges of the smile and just has a few squares to deal with, and here we go. Very nicely done, but the time loss for Molgames here is really, really big, sadly. So it has to forfeit lots of points compared to the other 12, 30, 34 they show us, with a gold split on lone 9, sadly. Not enough to PB.
Kirby is almost done as well. 97%. Doesn't want to try to go for that last patch of grass. It would have been pretty tough, I think, to get all of those. Does go ahead and get the fuel spawn, and then that is going to clean up on 10 for Kirby, about a 13-minute time. This is, not quite what you're hoping for in a race, but given how punishing this game can be, it's far from unreasonable for even a good player to end up with a time like this. On the court now. Has, I think, fueled out once here in Lawn 10, and is most of the way done here. But, he's done the easy part. It's getting these little in-between. Oh, my goodness, the fuel was not on this side. It was on the other.
I did not see it.
It must have been right on the edge.
Yeah, probably. If the fuel can was bright red, maybe it would be easier to see. But sadly, it's green on green. And yeah, it's sometimes it's easy to miss, even if it's blinking a little bit.
It's blinking. It's flashing. It's bolded outline, big black. Well, it's one of those things where if you're in the middle of the screen when it spawns, and you don't immediately check to see if it's on the sides, like if you're like, oh, just some flowers there for on the cur. If you think like, I'll just get this last patch of grass before, and then I'll go check for it. You cannot do that when you're in the middle of the screen, and it could possibly be on both sides. Being able to check all, especially in this lawn where there's like flowers at the bottom or something, if you had to go all the way up from, say, the top of the mouth, and then all the way over to one side, and then all the way over to the other, that's basically all the fuel you have. Based off of when the fuel can spawns and when you will die. So you need to go immediately if you're in that situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, usually as soon as you hear the fuel can spawn, you want to...
Oh, no!
Slowing down and everything and still taking the wrong turn. But yeah, as soon as... especially when you're beginning at playing the game, as soon as you hear the fuel can, you want to rush towards it. And then when you progress, you want to rush... figuring out a way of as cutting down grass as well, and then when you are super experienced with the game and how you move, you can take detours on your way towards the fuel can. But still, it is very difficult, and if you take too many risks, which oh no, the back and forth on a rock, classic way to die, sadly. And I'm not sure if Olniker is going to keep on going, but the players are getting set up for the next race. KTH and the ship are doing great, because there's Devil Thief and Cute Shadow ending up at the 3rd, 4th, and 5th place. And Fireman, Little My Molgames, and Cowpick actually doing way worse than what they're used to.
Yeah, their first chance tournaments for Lawnmower, Fireman had a 192 points, a 905. We got Little My Molgames. Molgames had a 199, almost 8 minutes. Little My did not play, I think, in the qualifying tournament, but yeah, not quite up to their regular performance, as regular as you can be in this game. I mean, KTH is the world record holder, I believe, still has a 7:25 here, almost 2.5 minutes off of a 5-minute PB, is like 50% off of their time, but honestly 7.5 is pretty good. There's a reason that is our 200 point mark here. So great performance from KTH. ND Shepherd, as we might expect. Ghost Death also pretty good, beating out Devil Tifa for one thing. Top 6 qualifier Devil Tifa. So trying to get back into it. Lawnmower over and done with. Moving on to game number 2. It's Trackmania 2 Stadium.
Trackmania, a very fun game to grind and to play, just shaving off frames. It's the complete opposite of a Lawnmower. When you are good at a track at Trackmania, you are expecting to do the same time or maybe a second or two off, but not much. And It's very tricky to get down to the very best time because the game has been speedrun quite a lot since it's almost all the game has to offer. Go as fast as possible and grind for your outer middle and then grind down the few frames you have still to gain, and that's it. The players are all around the 12 minutes mark, and it seems like the 12-minute time, which is the 200 points, is a good divider between those who are under 12 minutes, especially during races, and those who are still practicing a bit, maybe learning on some tracks and still improving. After 11:30, it becomes so hard to save just a half a second on each track, but still we are doing all the green tracks, so the second easy difficulty, and it's the tracks are not too hard, no tricks, no silly jumps, no crazy stuff, but still some turns, some ways of wall riding, some multi-lap tracks will get the best of you.
Yeah, we can speak in green. We do have a heck of a lot of green on Kirby's green. In the top left, the green medal is the one you get above gold. It's for beating the author of the track and beating their best time. So it's not so easy to get, and it's the mark of someone who's really put time into the game when they have even one of those green medals, I'd say, but certainly some of them, in particular tracks 9, 10, and 15 are incredibly difficult to get that green medal. Kirby has all of them. Don't see any for Ghost Death. I don't know if we'll get a peek at some medal screens from some of our other players, but that'll generally be a fair indication of a player's skill and practice, level of play that they have reached in this game. But it's not so easy to replicate those performances to get those green medals when you string all of the tracks back to back to back.
Ooh, we're trying to show us the cut on the 13, but it's not. It's so difficult to get precisely. But you can bounce on that railing and land on the other side of the wall and save with just a tiny bit of time. The players are going to get ready. The update was not so long for Onlooker, so I'm pretty happy. And everybody seems to have their fair bit of green medals. Onlooker still has one silver medal on the B15, one of the hardest and longest maps in the of the bunch. I'm a bit surprised, but it explains just a little bit their PB. They're not too bad, but it's crazy how being 40 seconds away from the best is so. It feels so bad compared to some games where you are just trying to get sub 10 on Mower and the world record is at 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's the complete opposite, really, and it means that it's a game that when you've got 9 other games to play, a lot of people seem to aim somewhere close to that 12-minute mark, and then they're off somewhere else. They're going to practice VVVVV. They're going to practice the messenger. So I don't expect to see too much movement on the leaderboard for Trackmania in particular. I think probably it's the people who are playing it just because that's just a game that they like to play. I think probably we'll see some updates from some of those people. Some of the veterans of the game who are were playing long before it was a game in this season. Their best times from before don't carry over onto the leaderboard, so I bet there's probably some of them who want to see their UD leaderboard come down and match their actual best time. So maybe some of that will happen as the season goes on. It'll be great to see.
All right, race is starting, and green tracks starts with BO1, which is probably the hardest, or one of the hardest, just because of the mix of dirt and concrete and the sheer difficulty of certain upward slope dirt turn that are pretty tricky to get correctly. But onward we go. Quick on those mixed concrete and dirt, staying in the middle of the track just to keep their grip on the concrete and keep on going and not drifting too much. Doing a fantastic job here and keep on moving. Everybody is doing great so far, not bonking on the railing, except Onlooker maybe. I was slowing down quite a bit here.
Mulgamis did hit on railing, but didn't go over, didn't get stuck in between the little segments that happen on the railings whenever there's dirt. So the dirt is already hard enough because you lose traction on dirt. It's, there's a lot of really nasty turns on dirt for some reason that go really sharp as well as, upwards or downwards. So combine that with the fact that the railings have all these little openings that will just catch your car, makes them particularly dangerous. And the worst part is the most optimal way to take pretty much all of those turns is to hug the very most outside of it, because so many of them are banked inwards that will help you turn, let you save come into those turns with more speed if you rely on the edges of the dirt turns there.
Taking a very bad hit on that full speed track here. That's a big setback. But once again, big in Trackmania means a couple of seconds, if not less. Starting track 3 here, you're going to see the runners do a weird left and right at the start just to keep their wheels on the track for the most as possible, because you are going to get traction on those sections and keep on accelerating if your wheels are touching the ground. So you're really trying to maximize that, and those steps at the end can get the best of us. But Kirby does a great job here. Oh, Mulgamis goes too high! I've never seen that
before. I did not know that was possible. Just got a weird bounce. Ended up upside down. The car will kind of magnetically try to land on 4 wheels right side up, but if you crash in a fairly spectacular manner, you can actually get your car stuck, and that means you have to reset back to the checkpoint. It's one of the biggest time losses that can happen in this game. Those steps are just so evil.
Kirby got a hang on the railing on the dirt section here, losing a lot of time because this passes that turn without an issue. So there's Mulgamis. Onlooker is going to auto drift here, going forward. But when you are changing surfaces or just landing on the road while turning, you are going to get a drift automatically, allowing you, if you know what you're doing, to get way better trajectories, and a lot of runners are going to abuse that on many different tracks. Probably not on B05, starting here for Kirby. This is the first multi-lap track. 30 laps to complete it, and it means that it's one of the longest, and also you have that turn you don't want to miss, but Kirby clears it so much you don't know how you could miss that.
Very, very difficult steep turn there. Does a really good job of staying on the outside but not touching the railing. We see Onlooker also doing a pretty good job of navigating that turn. Mulgamis and Ghostdeath both taking it at the same time. Ghostdeath a little rocky, but is, all 4 wheels are on the ground, so anything you can drive away from is something you're pretty happy with. Going into lap 2 now for Kirby on some of the really sharp bank turns. Had 275 kph off of the jump. This is about what you're kind of aiming for. It's possible to get as high as your 280s, even 290 if you take that turn really well. Ghostdeath at 265. Mulgamis I didn't see, but it was probably around 255, I'm guessing. So very, very difficult to keep your speed. Oh boy, this is sticky. All right, we're out of here, but you're still losing time all this way until you finally catch up to where your speed would have been if you didn't crash. You're bleeding seconds the whole way.
Yeah, taking a full stop on a railing like that is one of the worst deaths you can take. Well, worst accident. Obviously, having to restart at the checkpoint because you are on your back is even worse. But it's really something you want to avoid. And Ghostdeath taking a nice turn here, but slowing down quite a lot, trying to adjust their angle. So Mulgamis is going to beat the track a little bit before them. You're going to notice that the players do try to menu between tracks as fast as possible, because even if we are going up with in-game time, the time is ticking during the menu, so that's something you want to do as fast as possible. The runners have been learning techniques to maximize or minimize the time spent in menuing. One of the ways you can do that is put your mouse on the next track button, so it's already pre-selected as soon as it appears.
Yeah, it's pretty nice the way that it will kind of auto detect that mouse input when the time for the menu to appear is. You would think that it would stop accepting mouse inputs, but it works out in a pretty nice way. You can also just hold start and mash A, or whatever buttons you have bound to menu and confirm. So you can get through these menus pretty quick. But if you're not careful, you could lose a second or two to something that you probably shouldn't have if you were being diligent. Kirby now half a track ahead of the others. Loading times are a factor when we're watching here on stream. They will not be counted towards the final time, so it can be a little bit deceiving. But I'm guessing everyone's stream delays are pretty close here. So I think this is, what we're seeing is really what we're gonna see at the end.
On track 7 here, Kapuku got a very nice sharp turn close to the wall, staying at above 350 kilometers per hour. We see Molgames trying to go as sharp as that, but dropping down to 300 and touching the wall, sadly. It's not so easy to do, but it looks deceivingly easy, to be honest. It feels like it's all about knowing when to slow down and how to drift, but it's down to very, very tiny optimization, and you have to pay attention to where you are on the road to take advantages of the geometry of the tracks. And taking those wall ride can be tricky, but especially that final turn on the BO8, you have to drop down your speed so much, and then you have to readjust. But Ghostess does a fantastic job here. Meanwhile, Molgames gets stuck on the turn. We'll see how it does. Onlooker sadly bounces on the border and is going to slow down all the way to 150.
I mean, thankfully you want to slow down a little bit anyway. So as bad as hard as that turn is, and as bad as it can seem when you totally crash into a wall or whatever, you need to really slam on the brakes on that turn anyway. So you're really not losing all that much time, assuming you don't get stuck like on the half pipe or something. Kirby I thought was going to be the best player on that turn for sure, but Ghost Death had a phenomenal turn there on that really notable part. Everyone's on track 9 except Kirby, who's just moved on to 10 here. Ghost Death, we'll see if they're going to do the little shortcut here between the umbrella and the stands. Is going to go around it instead. That's probably the safest, most sensible thing to do on that track, whereas Kirby now is on B10, which is an incredibly difficult multi-lap track. You are on concrete for most of it. There is some dirt that has some. You might need to release the accelerator a little bit to make sure you don't touch those railings. But it's mostly just some really sharp turns on concrete, and they're very difficult to optimize. The way that each turn kind of feeds into the next means that you constantly need to be adjusting to any little error you made in the previous turn.
That's finishing the first turn in 30 seconds here and moving onward. Having all the speed you didn't have the previous turn can be a little bit surprising, but these players are obviously used to racing those multi-lap tracks. Kapukas is in full turn ahead of Ghostess and doing great. He's going to clear the track in 1:18, feels like. Yep. Barely. Meanwhile, Molgames is just a little bit behind Ghostess. Not much. Those two are staying neck to neck, and Onlooker had a lot of accidents, but is still on par with those two. Sadly, going too fast here, and is going to slow down all the way to 0.
Still on the track, though. It's entirely possible that you go over the railing in that situation if you don't let off the gas and or start a drift coming off of the little bit of a gap in the transfer from the concrete to the dirt. So potential for even more time lost there. So some silver lining for Onlooker. We got Kirby still way out in front on the incredibly fast high-speed finish to this track with just some drifts, just some fun S turns here.
fun and they're very difficult to take properly. And if you don't drift, you might be able to clear those like ghost deaths, but they lost a lot of time compared to Molgamis trying to go for those drifts, but sadly touched the railing. And Molgamis is going to miss the jump here, sadly has to slow down all the way. You can stay full speed here. The slight bank on the road allows you to jump above those central pillar, which is you know, a little bit frightening when you do it for the first time, but no problem once you're used to. Sadly, slowing down meant that Molgamis is way behind Ghost Death now.
Yeah, it takes a little bit before you can get a sense of how much speed you need to cross those gaps, and then being able to tell how much speed do I have right now. I mean, you have that speedometer, but it's constantly changing, so it's not so easy to tell just by looking at that. Also, it means taking your eyes off the road in a lot of cases. So we can see Kirby here is not going for the crazy shortcut here in the race. Got our hopes up a little bit, but ran a fantastic track. It's 13 or 14, I can't remember, but we're pretty far along now. 15 tracks is the total number for this goal. Which means we're almost done. Yeah, that was 13. So 14 has the grass turn after this sequence here from concrete to dirt. You want to try to keep your speed up as much as possible, and this is done by not turning too sharply. So this is great. Never dropped below 180. Fantastic.
Yeah, that's very, very good. Usually you'll see the players drop down to 160, 150 even. If you're trying to turn too much on grass or any slippery surfaces, you're going to actually slow down in one way and slowly recovering your speed in the other direction you're going. And if you're trying to add those vectors too sharply, you're going to lose so much. Let's see Ghost Death here. Yeah, drop down to 146 and then builds that speed up way slower than what did Quick, costing them not much. This is not costing too much, but those are the details you have to pay close attention to if you want to gain time in Trackmania. There is no way around that, because losing a second or a second and a half in the track is not possible if you want to compete with anyone in the UD or even beyond. If you want to get closer to that world record on the category, it's really those tiny details that are going to matter.
Yeah, if you're ever like racing against a ghost and you can't figure out how is this thing beating me, how is it still ahead of me, it's all those little moments like that added up. Molgamis, with kind of a nasty crash on the end of 14, has been taking the dirt turns really aggressively, which is, you know, what you want to do if you want to go as fast as possible. But if you're a little bit off to the side, those railings are going to punish you really hard. It's happened a couple times to Molgamis now. Onlooker being much safer on that dirt turn, and is going to come out, you know, ahead of Molgamis on that one particular part for it. On to 15 here. Kirby is done 13:29 real time on the timer. We'll see what the time ends up being when they upload it. But this is a tricky track. We can see this section here with the red X's is a section that will cut your engine. So you're just coasting from that point. And that means it's so important to cross it with as much speed as possible.
So we can add the one big accident. I don't remember where, but they slowed down quite a bit and still managed to get a sub 11:30. Very fantastic performance. Just not stopping, going for everything they knew, and having very good runs on certain tracks. Ghost Death is done just now, about a minute behind Quick real time. We'll see what it adds up to, removing those loads. And Molgamis and Olniker should be done soon, but a second feels like a minute in Trackmania.
Yeah, that's just the nature of the game. Molgamis is going to get a PB here by quite a lot, jumping up a ton of points. I don't know what kind of points these are or how exactly they're calculated, but it compares you versus like everyone else who's ever raced on this track in the world, and then gives you this score. So jumping up, doubling your score on a track is like, I think doubling the number of people you are have a faster time then. So like, it's a marked, a very big improvement actually here on the final track for Molgamis.
Yeah, but it's weird because it counts multiple times the same people, because it depends on your region. So if there are lots of people on your where you're from, you're going to earn way more points. It's super weird. You can delve into that, but I'm not sure you're going to see the light of day if you're trying to understand how those many planet points worked. Anyway. Andy Shepard is on top of the leaderboard here with a very good performance on both games, 202 and 202. Reminds me of one of the first tournament with Little My killing off all the competition with only 202 points on all the games. So Andy Shepard at a total of 404 is currently in first place. Following them is Ghost Death and Devil Tifa. Devil Tifa losing a lot of points in Lawnmower is not going to recover enough points here on Trackmania. And Quick with 165 on Lawnmower, still at the 4th spot with 211 on Trackmania.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult to recover from that Lawnmower performance. I would see Ghost Death in chat here has got a PB in Trackmania, has finally pushed underneath the 12-minute mark here to get that 200 points. That is a very, very satisfying goal to reach. So understandably, Craigasm is the reaction there. KTH off the back of the best Lawnmower and a solid Trackmania here has jumped up into second. I think Little My got 202, 202, 202, and then 194, so that it added up exactly to 800.
Oh,
I think that was,
that's it.
So we'll see if Andy Shepard has the same thing in mind here, because there was no way that it wasn't just totally planned.
It's all written down. All the players have their goal in their scripts to follow. And overall, very impressive. Here we go. So we have all our 10 times. Sebly and Aestrom apparently skipping some games or even all of them, which is understandable. Coming off tough result from Sablier on the first chance tournament. Very, very good runner. Top 10 of the bunch. One of the most active runners, and never quite fully realized what they were able to during those tournaments. So I don't know how they're going to react in the next qualifying tournament happening in 2 weeks and a half now. It's very soon, actually. Those players don't have much more time to practice and learn those games.
Yeah, it was maybe a little mean calling the first tournament the first chance tournament, because it makes you think like, oh, I'm going to have all these chances. I'm going to have lots of time. And then the last chance tournament was actually the next tournament announced just, to 3 weeks afterwards. So it's those 3 weeks will go by very quickly. We'll see how many players choose to spend them playing Kirby's Dream Land, a debut of everyone's favorite pink little puffball, except he's not pink, he's white. And the thing that everyone knows him for, copying other people's abilities, is something he can't do in this game. He just swallows enemies and spits them out at other enemies, or just eats them. You can just tap down to just eat an enemy whole. Who knows where it goes, or if it had a family or any of that. Kirby certainly does not care. He is ruthless. He will do anything if it means minimizing lag.
Oh, wrong game and wrong
Blast
UD
from the past.
For Quick. Yeah, Spectrable was UD's 6th game, and it is a ball. It's not the right one. Molgamis, I don't know what happened, but they're on Wispy Wood. And here we go. Everybody is going to practice just a little bit or pray the RNG gods to get the correct patterns on Krakow. One very important way of improving is to get lucky, but usually you certainly want perfect execution, never dying, good reaction when anything is going wrong, not lagging the game too much. One of the ways you can do that is by not speeding out enemies too much, but just digesting them will do the trick, and trying to avoid anything that spawns stars or any effects. The Game Boy is really struggling with the game.
It is there's a real push and pull to managing the lag. You want to be swallowing enemies and spitting them out at other enemies to remove them from the screen so that they're not a sprite on the screen, lagging the game anymore. But every time you do almost anything with Kirby, adorable little stars shoot out all over the place, and each of those is a sprite, and the game will lag drawing those sprites. So you have to figure out when can I not lose much time, if any, having some of these extra stars on screen, removing an enemy such that when more enemies spawn, that first enemy's gone, so the overall lag is reduced. And if you do it wrong, you can lose more time than you would have if you had just not done anything. So it is pretty difficult. The race has started. I think we got some stream shenanigans going on. Yeah, so Molgamus is going to appear to be 40 seconds behind the others, or so it seems, but they will upload their in-game times and everything will be fine. We got Poppy Bros here. Getting favorable patterns is quick. Onlycore is not. Getting the big jump overhead is just a couple seconds time lost here.
Alright, Ghostdeath gets the kill, so he's Onlycore. Molgamus is going to appear a little bit late, but don't worry, everything is fine on their end. Level 1 has that, after Poppy Bros Senior here, you have that huge corridor filled with enemies, and all the trick here is to remember the exact sequence of jumping above enemies, swallowing, killing, so you minimize lag. It's all about execution, and memorization can be a little bit tricky because it's a long one, and then you get in the tree and towards Wispy Wood. You don't want to see the boss trying to blow you because it's wasting your time. You need those apples to spawn.
Yep, it is. They spawn in sets of 3 here, so if you see another apple, then you know immediately you've got your best pattern. Your remaining 3 shots are about to come down. Onlycore, although did just waste one of them, so needs to find one more here. Also can't get hit. It's pretty rare that you get hit, but we just saw it happen, so I was a little worried, but they are able to finish that off. Losing, 5-6 seconds or something on Wispy Woods is probably something you're not going to be too happy about, but that's just one of the things that can happen when you're racing this game. Quick in the lead currently. Hard to say how they compare to Molgamus. Molgamus had one of the best times in Kirby during the qualifying tournament.
Yeah, Molgamus is certainly a very good player in the game, so just seeing how they move towards the star after the boss dies here, showing great reactions and no knowledge on how the game works. On level 2 here at Castle of Lolo, some players will go for the curry strat. No such decision for Quick, totally understandably so, because it is such a difficult way of killing the bosses. You cannot lose any seconds, and Ghostdeath is going to show that off.
Yep, Kirby has eaten the hot curry. So hot, he now breathes fire. It's a power-up that only lasts a limited amount of time, so you need to rush like crazy if you want to get anything out of this power-up against Lololo and Lalala. They spawn here in the 2nd and 4th rows, so we're not going to get to see exactly how much damage Ghostdeath gets out of the curry. Looks like it was 3 shots, so that's pretty, you can kind of expect, if things go relatively well, that you'll get those 3 shots. Getting all the way up to the other character and getting more damage there is quite difficult. Getting all 6 is possible, but extremely difficult. But because a lot of players feel like they can expect to get at least those 3 hits, they can kind of come out even, and so it has meant that even players who are obviously pretty new to running the game have felt comfortable going with this strat even in races.
Yeah, you have to pay close attention to where the enemy spawn, because that's random, and getting the 1st and 4th row means you have to react very quickly, and you cannot go for the 6 shots. Oh wow, Onlycore almost dying there. We've seen players die on the water on last Saturday, so that's something you have to be very careful with. The space between the bottom of the screen and just the tiny layer of water is very, very small. So be mindful of that when you are swimming instead. Well, jumping, swimming, I don't know what that is, but instead of flying, because it is faster. So just to make it worth your time and efforts, you have to be very precise. And overall, that's the story with the game. Any time saved is all about precision and tight execution. The players are bonking quite a lot, I notice, on the platforms and the jumps. Kirby is not the most tight platforming game. It's more about being able to move down through the levels. You can actually kill all the enemies if you want to play through the game, but trying to go fast at jumping is floaty and somewhat imprecise.
Yeah, I was just thinking, when you were talking about how it's not so easy to really start to drill down and go faster and faster in Kirby below the 11-minute mark, say. It really does start to get pretty difficult. I was thinking of how it's similar to Trackmania in that way, and then you started talking about the controls, and I started thinking like it's kind of almost like Trackmania, that you kind of need to have Kirby take turns in some ways, because he does accelerate so slowly when he is flying and transitioning out of flying into walking. You want to, there's a period where Kirby is, stuck kind of still at flying speed, but is in the process of dropping, and so it takes a while for that animation to happen. It's like more than half a second, I think. So you need to be kind of thinking ahead in when you transition in and out of flight, almost like taking a turn in Trackmania. It's a bit of a stretch maybe, but having played both games, I kind of get a feel like that's the case.
I see what you mean, but sadly it also feels sometimes that you're always on grass.
Right.
You are lacking a little bit of control. Kirby showing great confidence here with only 2 HP, still going for the harder strats, entering the arena of Krakow Jr. here at the same time as Ghostess. Meanwhile, Molgames, I do remember that they started a little bit late, is just an entire screen before that, and one of the hardest screens in the game. Bubbly Clouds here is a very difficult level because you need to make a lot of jumps, and everything is really nasty there. It's so easy to lose HP, but Molgames has no issue whatsoever in that tiny sections. Going for the fly here, not so confident to make the jump above the enemy. Quick, only 2 HP is not going to refill their health, so no problem. And barely not being touched here, no problem either. But if you know what you're doing, you should not take any hits in the Krakow fight. But sometimes you are going to get a little bit hasty. Sometimes you're going to get superstitious and try to do silly things to manipulate the RNG, but it's not going to matter anyway. We'll see anyway after just that one screen how it's treating a Kirby Quick here.
There is one spot where I think it's pretty likely to take damage, but never more than one. So if you have 2 health, it's not too much of a concern. It's this guy right here. Molgames indeed is going to take damage off that guy. If you go as fast as possible, he lines up perfectly so that you can just scooch by. But if you're like me, you're not as fast as possible through those blocks, and you can hung up a little bit. It means he's in a bad place in the cycle. And trying to time it correctly is pretty difficult here. All Nakur is going to go for it. Oh my gosh, he was so close to taking a hit there. That would have killed him. That would have been a really big time loss. Very gutsy move.
Yeah, I hate being at 1 HP in Kirby. It's very, very, very easy to take a wrong turn. Meanwhile, Kirby Quick, takes Krakow right to the face, but he's going to kill the boss. 1 HP remaining on Ghostess, very close between those two. Molgames feels great here. If the boss treat them alright, they should have get a good time in that force level. Meanwhile, Kirby Quick and Ghostess entering Mount DDD, final level, featuring a nice boss rush with 4 tiny levels. Kirby Quick remembering to keep up button pressed and not touching left or right, gets a clean entrance here towards low and la refight.
I forgot to check when Kirby Quick and Ghostess defeated Krakow, because Molgames started about 40 seconds behind them on stream, so I wanted to try to check to see just how close they are, and I missed my chance here, but I can tell that Kirby Quick is 1 hit ahead of Ghostess on Lolo, except I think he missed that hit there, so is actually tied now with Ghostess.
We're going to see. Oh no! Quick misses!
Come back!
Alright, Ghostess gets the kill at 9:31 on Lolo and Molgames. I feel like they're about 10 seconds ahead of that, meaning that they're well placed here. Quick going towards Cracker refight, and Ghost is going towards Wispy Wood. You can go in any order, it's not going to matter towards your final time.
Molgamis needed to drop through a platform with a box in his mouth. Oh, nice double hit though, making up for it. You need to press down on your D-pad to drop through a platform, and that is the input to swallow whatever you're holding in your mouth. So if you get stuck in that awkward situation where you have a box, but you don't have enough time to spit it out at either Lololo or Lalala, then you hold on to it for next time, and you try to get a double off of it, but it can be awkward sometimes on those platforms. Molgamis lost one of his precious boxes, but I think is still probably ahead here by about 10 seconds, maybe more like 7 or 8 now, given that happened. But there is still Krako, there is still DDD, so RNG is still there. We'll see how it goes for all of these players on the core. About to move on to Kibula. Molgamis just finished up.
Molgamis moving on towards Wispy Wood. Kibula is way harder on the boss rush here because it's sometimes you're going to lose some HP on the boss if you're trying to go as fast as possible. Onlooker taking it very, very safe and still getting hit, sadly. And losing HP is pretty bad in the last level because there is no way to refill your health. So you have to play with whatever HP you have left. And you'll see a lot of runners actually committing a strategic suicide on DDD right at the start of the fight because the fight is a bit long, and if you have only 1 or 2 HP you might not feel confident enough to kill the boss without dying.
You also have an opportunity to do that on the Wispy Woods section. There's a nice pit pretty close to the start of that section, so we've seen some players decide to just hop off a cliff to get some health refilled. We've seen some players unintentionally die there because you need to drop down pretty low, and like I was saying before, if you need to start flying well before you actually want to be flying, so the button input comes pretty early, and it makes it a little bit difficult and pretty easy to accidentally be too late on that input. Dropping down into the arena here, the ring with King DDD. It's both Ghost Death and Kirby who are both neck and neck. We are looking for either jumps or hammers. Those will produce the stars we need to spit back at DDD. It is, of course, random which attack we get. So we're kind of just waiting for DDD here, but there's plenty of little optimizations you can be doing to make this go as fast as possible.
Yeah, especially staying close to DDD means that you're going to minimize the time DDD spends attacking. So either it be being DDD trying to swallow you, or just stumbling on you, or hitting you with the hammer. It's going to go faster if you're staying close to the boss. So that's what the players are doing, and Kirby is having great success here. But feels like maybe Ghost Death is a little bit ahead, and yeah, finishes off. 2 HP remains for Kirby. Final time sub 13 minutes. That's actually very good.
Yep, that is something any player could be happy with. I think I incorrectly said 11 minutes earlier, talking about a time to aim for in Kirby. I meant 13. I got confused with Trackmania, I think, and the world record of Kirby. Perhaps there's a lot of similar times floating around in my head. 13 is a great time. 13:20 as well for Kirby is something you can totally be happy with in a race. Molgamis is currently at about 13 minutes, I think, so it's going to finish a little bit behind Ghost Death. It's hard to tell sometimes with the stream delay, but taking a hit off of the top of DDD here, cannot hit again. Cut it too close. Oof, that is a big time loss.
Yeah, dying so late into the DDD fight, that means they've lost about 40 seconds, so that's going to be a huge setback. Sadly, Molgamis, being one of the best Kirby's runners, not going to be able to leverage that advantage on the current tournament here. Trying to aim for silver or gold medal is going to go to be even harder for them now. So we're going to have a nice fight in full screen mode. Meanwhile, the other runners can get ready for the fourth and last game of the day, being VVVVVV. Maybe you want to warm up a little bit. Switching from games to games can be somewhat difficult, especially considering how different the games are.
Yeah, Kirby is quite sluggish, like we've talked about a number of times, and the complete opposite is true of VVVVV. Much more of a lawnmower speed in that game, which is just how I measure how fast things go now. That's become my barometer. There's a literal speedometer in Trackmania, but for me, I relate things to how fast lawnmowers go now. That's just, there's life before lawnmower and life after it. I'm living the afterlife. Molgames is finally living life after DDD has been defeated. A little bit under 15 minutes here, and for a runner of Molgames's caliber, especially on this game, they got to be a little bit disappointed with this one.
Yep, apparently finishing in 10th place. Little Mai getting the first place and the only 200 point here. That's putting them at the 7th place. Cute Shadow at 566 is at the 6th spot. Quick 3 points ahead of that, and in the 5th place. And now, about 22 points ahead of everyone else are Ghost Death, Double Tiffany, KTH, and Andy Shepard. Andy Shepard at 599 sadly has to go for the 201 points if they want to get the nice, well-rounded 800. But being 7 points ahead of KTH here is pretty good, although a lot of players are getting crazy good times now on VVVVV. KTH is at 1610 PB-wise, Double Tiffany is at 1553, and where's Andy Shepard? I don't see them on the leaderboard. At 1815, that's going to be very difficult. They have to go for PB if they want to keep their first place.
Yeah, well, assuming that, KTH and Devil Tifa are able to replicate something pretty close to their PBs, which I think is incredibly difficult with VVV in particular. We got, I think, all the times now in for the leaderboard, only one player, Little Mai, to get that 200-point mark. In the qualifying tournament, only 3 out of the 19 people who competed in that game were able to get above 200 points. 2 of them were Lilia and Silshady. The third was Molgames, actually, with the best time of the entire tournament in Kirby. Beating Taker, who was completely unstoppable. That I think this was the only game where they also didn't get top on VVV, but Molgames was that player who was able to beat everyone else that day. So a bit of an off showing here for them today. We'll see if they can put that out of their head. Look forward to the incredibly fast-paced platforming. Is it platforming? If you're not jumping, you're flipping. But I guess you're.
I don't know. It's a 2D side-scrolling game. You are dodging enemies and spikes mostly. I was reading interesting theories of what was those VVVs mean in the title. Those are the names of the your friends in the ship that you've lost and you're looking for throughout the world, but also are symbolizing the up and down motion you're doing while flipping with gravity. Going for nice V's, but also the spikes that are always there. Looks like these, so it is somewhat always there, and it's a very, very nice game. Almost feels like it's been made for speedrunning. A lot of players have been playing speedrunning, testing this tiny cute platformer. One of the most well-known indie games of early 2010, when everybody was all about indie games, and very few of them were actually available on Steam and other platforms.
2010. I'm trying to even remember what the gaming landscape even looked like in 2010. I think Xbox Live Summer of Arcade was a thing in 2010. Was where a lot of indie games got their start. VVV was pretty sure was only ever on Steam, but I think of it in that same wave as Braid and what are some.
Cave Story got published at those times, even if it's a little bit earlier. What
Spelunky.
Was it? Spelunky on the Xbox Live Arcade got available as well. Minecraft got popular around those times. It was an interesting time where some tiny indies got super, super big because the landscape was not filled with them still, and it was very, very difficult to get on Steam, actually. So getting your game on Steam meant that you would have full coverage for a long time. Now over 30 or 70 game comes out every day on Steam, so just having your glimpse of appearance on the platform is mere illusion. So yeah, we got that awesome tiny platformer with banger music, and everybody is going to try to go as fast as possible through the game, trying to die as little as possible, and maybe flipping as much as possible or as little as possible. We haven't yet decided what was
no,
the best.
not yet. One of them clearly is, a very important decision that it is kind of shameful that we've pushed it aside for so long, but we will get there eventually as deciding the tiebreaker. We decide by points first. If by some miracle we do have a tie in terms of points, we will go and look at your fastest time across all the games, and then if somehow that is tied, there's got to be something to break that tie, so why not look at the number of flips here in VVVVV.
This takes a death on one of the first screen here.
Oh man, there's a couple, the checkpoint's pretty far back there, so not a death that you want to take. But I don't. Is he gonna be able to get through that room okay? He was pretty late on his initial flip, so it looks like he's got through okay here. Mulgames waiting a little bit for the yes men. Opportunity here for a little flip.
Yes.
Nice, no hesitation
no problem
whatsoever.
Quick either. Just going as fast as possible. We'll see what Olniker does. Those flips are possible just thanks to the coyote time. You have 1 frame to engage a flip. Olniker not going for it, so just taking the long way around. And goes this. Oh, doesn't flip quite on time, and a bit too early there. Third time's the charm.
It's later than you on the input. You kind of have an input like after you've clearly left the platform. You can still flip just a little bit afterwards, which is kind of something I think a lot of more recent platformers have implemented. That there's like a 1 frame leeway on your jumps, but of course it doesn't matter how much leeway you give a player. A speedrunner is going to abuse that to get the most distance out of any jump possible. They will find the absolute last frame and they will jump on it. So using that here to do a couple skips. They're never easy in VVVVV, and they only ever save like maybe a second each. But, once you get comfortable with it, some players feel like going for it.
What is Mulgames doing? Going for the lab first. So I have been told that the order of levels minimize the time you spend in dialogues during intermissions. So not going for the correct route means that you are going to lose just a tiny bit of time. Maybe they're not super comfortable with the lab and they want to go for it first, or maybe they were just mistaken in the route overall and decided to go with it, to roll with it anyway. Meanwhile, Quick goes this, and Olniker are toward the ship that which just left, and entering with another entrance is going to lead us to our first lost friend here.
Yeah, this is it. Someone said it's like 8 to 10 seconds, depending on which crew member you end up with, compared to maybe the slowest compared to the fastest. I think is 8 seconds. So, not a small amount to lose for what is essentially no reason. So, but again, I only knew that when we started talking about it here on this stream, and a runner of the game was here to educate us. So, I would not fault Mulgames for figuring that it didn't really matter which order that you do them in, and so opted to follow some other rationale. Quick taking that 1 room with the red platform safely. There's a little skip you can do there. We saw, I think it was Ghost Death got hung up on that platform in the qualifying race a lot. Yeah. Died like 15 times in that room. So it's something that can get you, and I'm not surprised to see some players not going for the fastest strat there.
We also got during the qualifier our first Deathless Gravitron, and very impressive runs overall from the bunch. So the players are getting at that level where even experienced speedrunners are impressed with how much they've improved. Quick not stopping for anything, has already done with the level. Olniker and Ghost Death are at the halfway mark, and Mulgames just finished the lab, but the lab is one of the shortest, and the ship is one of the longest. Mulgames is going to head toward the tower, and maybe the opportunity for us to have a nice sync between the Quick and Mulgames' screens.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it lines up. on the core is in that room I was talking about, the red one with the moving platform, is going to accidentally flipped. You do not want to flip there, I mean, obviously, but this is something I've caught myself doing where your brain just says something needs to happen at this moment, and what that something is like a left or a right input, but my brain says something, well, I got only one button in this game that does anything, and it's flip, so I'm going to flip right now, and I'll flip into spikes or whatever. It's just, I'm not there yet with this game in a way that so many players have been able to get to, because it's just so difficult and taxing on memorization and all kinds of other things. So on the core is, I feel him. We're in the same boat, I think.
I love it that out of the 4 games we are playing today, 1 NES game, 1 Game Boy game, and 2 PC game, the game that have the most different inputs is the Game Boy game as Kirby. VVV has only 3 buttons. You have left, right, and flip, and that's it. Lawnmower had 5 buttons, and Trackmania has 3. Left, right, 4. Accelerate and decelerate. So brake. So it's Kirby was the most input-intensive game apparently. Meanwhile, Mulliganus and Kirby making their way through the tower. Ghost Death is in there as well, and Onlyper is making their way towards it. It is a slow-paced auto-scroller. You just want to hurry up so you can touch the next checkpoint, and the game is going to try to crush you quite a lot, but no problem and no death for Mulliganus here. Kirby is almost done as well, and Ghost Death is slowly making their way, but there's almost no way to make net sections go faster.
Yeah, you can choose to flip into some checkpoints early, get the checkpoint, and then immediately die on the spikes that appear when you approach the edge of the screen. That will you'll warp at the checkpoint you just died to, and that will cause the screen to actually scroll forwards really fast to catch up to where the game kind of wants to put you when you hit that checkpoint, and it does end up being a little bit faster, even though the game does pause while you die. But you need to be pretty aggressive with it to actually save time. And of course, if you're too aggressive, you're too early, you hit the spikes before the checkpoint, that's bad for obvious reasons. So not many players have opted to go for it. I think there's enough that's difficult about this game to worry about other things. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see more and more people start to incorporate this into their runs.
One thing I'm not sure we want to incorporate is the flip here in Not As I Do, but Kirby Quick goes for it. They were in sync with Mulliganus since the start of the intermission, but Mulliganus got faster there, and they're both dying on to try to keep up. Finally, Kirby Quick makes it to the room. The intermission here, the theme is that Vermilion is not going to move unless your feet are touching the ground, so you can use that as a mechanic to manipulate their behavior and have them surviving the traps laid there by the level designer. Still, we are onto the warp zone if we're following the normal route. And I'm not sure if Mulliganus is going to revert back to the ship, or yep, that's what they're going to do here.
I was just thinking, if they did the warp zone here, I think probably that would save the most time. I'm really not sure exactly what text boxes pop up where, but if you were to do the tower second and warp zone third, you would get those same 2 people for those 2 sections. You would just have whoever you save in the spaceship instead of whoever you save in the lab. But I think, keeping the most of the run the same as possible would have maybe been the way to go. Who knows? You're talking about the things that vary are the messages that the characters say, which means their relationships with each other is what is determining what's the fastest route. So figuring that out without understanding the deep lore, unfortunately, is a little bit beyond me. I can say Kirby Quick is moving, taking some of the early screens in the warp zone very well, not getting caught off by the fact that you need to immediately turn around on most of these screens here.
That means you remember exactly what you have to do. You don't have that half a second of stun, surprise that some runners that are less experienced with the game would get. Sometimes you just have your have to take your time just to input the correct direction. If you have to turn left and right quickly or just move on. Here we go. Copperquick was waiting for a little bit, although that might have been set up. I'm not sure. Copperquick is really not slowing down for anything. Doing great here. They were in sync with... Oh, nope, missing the checkpoint and the platforms, allowing them to flip here. You cannot flip mid-air, by the way. We haven't said that, but it is a very, very important thing to notice. The only time you can flip is when your feet are touching the ground or the ceiling, depending where the gravity pushes you. And here we go. I love you, and that's why I have to heal you. Two very, very difficult rooms here.
Copperquick has died here and died late enough into the room such that the cycles are not going to line up. Just had no fear and got through the cycles anyway. Here's the other half of this room. No problem there. The warp zone is probably the most difficult to complete. So having that done in as well as Copperquick just did, they have to feel pretty good about that. On the core also making their way to the warp zone. Ghost Death in kind of the Lost Woods-ish section of the way to the warp zone here. That's not quite true. The whole part of the Lost Woods is it's the same screen and you're entering a pattern, whereas these screens are all just laid out on a map. You could even look at your map and see which one you're on. They just happen to look the same. So not quite the same concept, but you get what I mean. Ghost Death now into the kind of the warp zone proper here, as Copperquick has started the Gravitron.
Alright, one very famous part of the run, dodging up and down is disabled for you. You are to that rhythm committed with those two white lines that flip the gravity for you. Just have your left and right input to dodge those squares that come at a fixed rhythm. Every 5 seconds you're going to have a checkpoint, and the patterns are going to change. Entering that 30-second section, you're going to have squares from the left and right that just got Copperquick killed and back to 30-second mark, passing the 25 and dying at 23. Back to 25, Copperquick is moving onward. Meanwhile, Moilgamis is doing great, and the time between those two is shrinking down.
Increasing now a little bit with Moilgamis dying, and Copperquick is past. Arguably the toughest part from 30 seconds to 20 is when they start coming in from both sides. There must be some logic to understanding where these things are going to be and where you're going to be, but I definitely have not figured this out yet. I die so often on this section. Moilgamis does get through it with one death right at the very end. There is currently 15 seconds behind Copperquick. Ghost Death has yet to start the Gravitron, but is quite close, and on the core still has about half of the warp zone left to go here.
I think Moilgamis actually took the correct decision, going to save the yellow crew member before going to the warp zone that has the verdigris crew member that is in love with yellow crew member, and they're referring to each other when you save verdigris. I'm not sure. We'll delve into the lore later, but it is pretty fun actually. You have those the tiny crew members are worried about each other, and depending on what order you save them in, they're going to have different answers, obviously. Meanwhile, Copperquick is into the lab. That's the first level we've seen Moilgamis do, and it has those nice white lines that flips the gravity as soon as you touch them. Copperquick dying twice here, getting stuck on those spikes, but moving on to the leap of faith.
Ghost Death in the Gravitron now has got past 20 seconds, so is barely going to not get to the 15-second mark. That is, 4.5 seconds or so is about the most you can lose in a death in the Gravitron. So it's maybe one of the worst deaths that you can take. There's definitely a couple situations where you skip a checkpoint on your most optimal path, and so if you were to die after skipping one or multiple checkpoints, that can be worse. But one death costing you 4.5 seconds is a lot for VVVVV. One last one there before they're going to get through the Gravitron. Nope, I take it back. Just, oh man, even if the mistake you're making is the same as another person's mistake, if they make it very close to on the one side of a 5-second checkpoint and you're on the other side of a 5-second checkpoint, it is such a big difference of about 5 seconds for basically the same mistake. So that is just the nature of the Gravitron Ghost Death getting a little bit bit there.
Meanwhile, Kapukui is done as all 5 crew members saved, but still has to save himself. So Verdian is going to go through the last sections here, and all this gray, all the rooms warp within each themselves, and you have to fix reality back together. It's certainly has some of the hardest rooms, but overall, once you know the setups, you will be able to make it nicely through those spikes, those moving. Went too early compared to my setup, but apparently has a different one. Everybody is able to go for different visual cues, and some are working better than others, apparently.
I have some that I use, but they're not the fastest. Like, I have to explicitly wait. Like that's my speedrun route, is stop and wait for like a full second on the screen, just because it was something I found that worked for me and I didn't want to mess with it. So that's just the amount of respect I have for how difficult it is to play this game. The moment I find something that increases my consistency, I leap on it because it's so rare in this game. Quick into the final section now, and has turned on the lights, has hit the music, and got through one of the most annoying rooms. Those conveyor belts move a lot faster than you think. Kind of looked like they walked clean across a gap with spikes there. I did not see a flip, but they are alive. This has been it was a really clean start to the final escape here.
Yeah, Three's Company, the room with the tiny gaps, killed the Ultime 3 times Saturday, and that was the room that got them killed the most. So just being able to go as fast as Kapukui does and not stopping for anything is very, very impressive. I'm loving what I'm seeing right now. It's super fluid, and yeah, to bounce back on what you were saying, just seeing those runners not having to wait for a setup, entering a room and knowing exactly what they have to do is very impressive. I too have to wait on every single room with moving elements just to set myself, okay, this is the time I go, and apparently they've figured out altogether ways to never wait. So Kapukui is done. We're going to see the in-game time now, and it's going to be at 16:48.
That seems like a great time. I'm wondering actually what Kapukui's PB is. I'm not ready with my leaderboards all pulled up, but I think it's got a shot. Kapukui has a 17:15 is their current time on the leaderboard. Sometimes it's a little out of date, but I think probably this is a PB.
Yeah, it's over 20-second PB. Very, very nicely done. Meanwhile, Devil Tifa got sub 16. No one knows how they've done that. KTH got a 16:24, and Fireman got a 17 minutes. Now everybody's waiting for Andy Shepard final time, because that's one of the most important ones for the current leaderboard. Meanwhile, Molgames is not stopping for anything as well, having a very, very clean run. But just competing against Kapukui today was very difficult on that very game.
Yeah, Kapukui is a little bit ahead of the curve on this game. Molgames is kind of right in the pack, I think. This is something closer to, I think, where you'll find the majority of the times for this game. Assuming everything continues on this really clean pace here, been a very nice couple of rooms. It was just the one spike that's right there as soon as the screen transitions. So if you're not ready for it, you're gonna hit it. A couple of deaths in the very, very, very last. Well, I guess this is the very, very last room, but the one just before this, labeled the final challenge. There's the upward scrolling section, which is fairly difficult in spots, but then there's the static part at the top that I'd never seen anyone die in. I don't think I've ever died in. And then all of a sudden during the qualifying tournament, there was deaths all over the place. And now today, both Kapukui and Molgames also getting caught on some of those spikes. We'll see if Ghost Death is able to break the pattern here. This is the hard part right here, actually dealing with those multiple flips.
And the final spike, yeah, they've waited just a little bit, because that one final spike, just extending the wire, it's very hard to say when the wire stops and when the spike starts, and that's what got caught my playthroughs. I'm not even calling those speedruns now that we're just seeing what the runners can do. So 18 minutes and 16 for Molgamis, and Ghost Death is going to end up with a 1856, a bit behind PBs for those two runners.
Yeah, Ghost Death has a 1720, and Molgames has an 1836 actually. So
wow,
this is a PB for Molgames by also 20 seconds. Saw Quick do it and said, "Yeah, that seems good. I'll take one of those," and did exactly that. Congrats to them. Alnicore is in the end of the lab here, so still has the final sequence afterwards.
And the shipboard was 5 seconds behind PB, so now remains to see if that's enough to keep that first spot. But they kept it and defended it well for the first 3 games. Olnuker still has about 3 to 4 minutes to go. So we are looking toward a 23 minutes in game time, final time. So a little bit behind PB as well. I'm not sure what happened. But VVVVV is a tough game to break in races. It's so easy to get stuck on certain parts, and if you're rusty on VVVVV, it can be very difficult to get back into the swings of things. It moves so quickly, and you have to chain everything together nicely. And yeah, the players, if you're a little bit hesitant, you're going to wait for setups, and that's going to cost you a lot of time.
Yeah, this is not a game where my brain can pull my memories of what the rooms look like, from the ROM in my head. I need to dump the game into my RAM first so that it's all fresh in there, ready to go. And then maybe I have a shot at actually remembering which room is next. If I don't have that, if I have to play 3 other games and then play this game, I am absolutely at the part where I will be hesitating in every single room, and would probably be still quite a bit slower than on the core. I've got 2 games left that I really want to work on, this and Out There Somewhere, and then maybe I can that'll get me to my 2,000 point goal that I personally have set. Alnicore is well on their way onto this goal. Actually, they're at 1867, maybe more like 1890 or something overall. They have a time for all 10 games. It's a matter of just improving here and there, whereas I've been aiming for 200 points in every game, but have just not gotten around to entire games yet. So I don't know who's further along, but we're certainly both pretty close. So I'm rooting for Alnicore to do their best here.
Alnicore, yep, pressing a little bit too early the away button. That has happened to almost everyone, I think. And moving onwards to the end of the game, everything is finally flashing all the different colors. I don't know if there's a cycle, a pattern, if you can see if you're losing time or saving time depending on what colors the screen is when you're leaving it. But those bugs here in time sleep, this is the room I dislike the most. This is not the most difficult or anything, but it is super infuriating to get through those 3 bugs here. Nicely done.
Yeah, it's a totally different thing the game is asking you to do compared to almost anything else in the game. You need to just release and repress the button with a certain timing to it, and I don't think there's anything quite like that in the game. So it is because it is so different from all the other rooms, it does mean that if it's something that doesn't come naturally to you, you can find yourself on that conveyor belt for quite a while, just releasing and repressing it as you feel like it was the same thing I just did, but I moved further back this time and I didn't want to, and now I have to do it again a couple times. And yeah, it really is a difficult maneuver.
The game moves super quickly. It is reminiscent of a lawnmower at certain times, for sure. But Onlooker is almost done, passing the panic room. Oh, barely here, surviving. Nice. It means that we should be almost there for them. And yeah,
the overcompensating here was it was too late holding the input, and then was too early the next time, and then was too late the third time, and just alternating back and forth. Yeah, this room is just in their head now.
Yep, not being able to have the correct timings. You cannot like keep one button pressed in VVV. It's all about releasing the button for a certain amount of time, and if you're not sure, or if you're a bit rusty or a bit tired, it can be difficult to adjust to. But Olnuker should be able to pass that room. But clearly, I think VVVVV is one of the games with Rack, maybe for different reason. Everybody should go back to a little bit. I feel like everybody is really able to, in the UD, able to get easy or at least accessible PBs compared to certain other games. Even Devil Tifa getting sub 16 today at 0.6 seconds away from PB apparently is able to do better, but the game is very difficult to practice, to learn, and just to grind in general. Every single mistake at certain point is going to kill you. Plus, you have the graviton. But GG, congrats to Olnuker finishing the game in... we're not going to see the in-game time. I'd like to.
21:33 is their PB, so 3 minutes off is for a race is not where you want to be, but it's not that bad. It is pretty difficult to match your PB, though I think we had like at least two in this race, certainly two on stream. So congrats to both Kirby and Molgamus. Andy Shepard as well was also very close to their PB, but their PB was not good enough compared to the monsters that are Devil Diva and KTH. 207 and 204 points in VVVVV. Very hard to hold them off, so Andy Shepard concedes first and second to them, but is going to hold on to that third spot for that Silver Star.
Yeah, not easy to do so. This is their third Silver Star. Silver means getting second or third on those tourneys, and there are very few of them in those player cards. KTH grabbed their second, and Ghost Death is still at 2, so Andy Shepard passes a lot of players on that regard. Kirby would get their 5th Bronze Star, and could have gone so much better with a better lawnmower. I don't know if they were rusty or not super into the game today, but and that's a big setback considering how well they've done on Trackmania and VVVVV.
Absolutely. This was lawnmower, man. This was look at the top 4 and then look at the lawnmower times. That's just boy.
Yeah, lawnmower is certainly one of the most important games. When it's not part of the full 10, it feels like it crushes a little bit the other, considering how important it is when you're losing or gaining time in that very specific game. Tomorrow we are going to have some fun event if you are at 8 p.m. Europe time, or I'm lost.
Eastern time.
Yeah, I'm lost with the time zones. I'm sorry. What happened to the world when we're shifting?
It's 6 seconds now. You shifted. Everyone is shifted now. I think the whole world is on the same page finally. At 2 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow, we're gonna switch things up. We're gonna have some fun.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty cool. We are lowering the difficulty. Usually the fun tournaments are actually about switching or changing or twisting things, but in this time the twist is everything easier, relaxed. So the categories are going to be Trackmania 2, but the white tracks, so a little bit easier, although not that much, considering how much practice the runners have put in the green tracks. It's going to be different. On Rack, it's going to be the cakewalk difficulty, meaning that everything dies in one hit. So it's all going to be down to movement and precision, but I do expect everybody to finish within 15 minutes, because one-shotting the bosses saves you so much time. And the messenger is going to be in the NG plus difficulty, meaning a lot of HP, the grappling hook at the start, taking less damage on the spikes, so it's going to be well relaxed and a good way of playing the games without too much of pressure or stress. It's going to be fun. And on Saturday we're going back with the actual UD categories with what other games? Saturday is going to be Minute out there somewhere and the Messenger. So no Land Mower sadly, but some more awesome game and very, very cool races.
Yeah, maybe some of the games that you're seeing just now over this incredibly jazzy Chrono Trigger tune. Definitely stick around for the outro here, but you might want to know what's coming up after this. We're just about done. After this is going to be Pac-Man World 2. It is any percent match between, I can say, Laurie G. Bunnykins and chat, I think, is actually going to be playing Lost Player 89, so stay tuned for that. On other channels, there's some Link to the Past randomizer stuff happening on Speed Gaming 3 and the Daily happening on 4. Later today, we're also going to have Portal 2, the Super Metroid Prodigy Tournament, the Link to the Past randomizer spoiler log tournament, more Pac-Man, Super Metroid randomizer, Splatoon 2, Final Fantasy 1 randomizer, and some more, A Link to the Past randomizer. Turns out it's popular. It's here pretty much all evening long. You can find it on Speed Gaming. You can type !schedule to find out exactly when all this stuff is.
So see you tomorrow. We'll be back with some Messenger, Rack, and Trackmania. And have a good day watching speedruns on Speed Gaming.